All right, let's get started. So, hello everyone. My name's Mark, and I'm part of the RemoteWinBox team. And today we'll be doing a quick overview of the RemoteWinBox centralized MikroTik management platform, as well as going over with a focus on what's changed and what's new over the last month. So, to start with, if you're new to RemoteWinBox, we've got a couple of different options. One is called RemoteWinBox, which is our cloud offering. And the other is called Admiral, which is our dedicated offering, which can live either in the cloud on your own hypervisor or as a 1U appliance. We've also started our expansion to other data centers around the world. So currently today, our primary data center is in Atlanta, Georgia, but we're expanding into European Union and Africa over the next couple of weeks. So again, if you're new to the RemoteWinBox platform and wondering, what it is that we do and how this works, you can go to RemoteWinBox.com, create a free account, validate your email address, and then you can start a subscription with $2, and then you can add as many routers as you want to test out the platform. Over the next 30 days, if you decide it's not for you, you can cancel your subscription. No harm, no foul. If you decide that it is for you and you love what the software does, you'll be billed at $2 per router per month. This solution makes sense for anywhere from one router to a couple hundred. Once you get to the point where it's 150, maybe 200 MikroTiks, it might make sense to move on to our Admiral platform, which is annual tiered billing. And so the Admiral and RemoteWinBox share the same code base. They allow you to do things like firmware management, centralized, bulk configuration changes. We'll run daily backups. You can check those backups and configurations and look at the differences between today and last week. And we're going to show all of this in a couple moments in the dashboard, but there's also a login manager and lots of other tools and features that allow you to better manage a MikroTik network. So, along with Admiral being annual priced and tiered based on volume, and then the price gets much more attractive as you get into hundreds or thousands of MikroTiks. In addition, this can be purchased as an appliance, so we can pre-configure it and ship it to you if you're in the US. Or you can, if you've got your own VM infrastructure, we can put the servers on your VM infrastructure. Or you can host it in our co-locations, either in Atlanta, Georgia, or soon to be Europe or Africa. So one of the other benefits of having an Admiral installation is that we can, our amazing team at RemoteWinBox, we are full stack developers, we are MikroTik certified engineers, we can specialize in creating you a custom solution. So some of our customers have asked us for a Graylog instance or something like a network monitoring system that can look at not just their MikroTiks, but other hardware vendors too. And in addition, this can be anything from IPTV troubleshooting to maybe creating a button that allows you to do VPN terminations really easily from the dashboard. So that kind of customization is unlocked when you're an Admiral customer. So to get to the meat and potatoes here of what's the webinar's purpose here, what's new over the last month. So again, we're going to jump into the dashboard here momentarily, but just quickly wanted to go over what is new in our UI. And so first off, we added port forwarding. So we've had many customer requests for being able to do a quick port forward without having to open Winbox. And so at this point now, we'll be able to display and add port forwards. You may have seen our auto provisioning feature, which is also called default template in the beta features. We've added a ton of hardening and improvements and bulletproofing in that category. So performance-wise, that is ready for your use. You can go in there, and the purpose behind that is, let's say I'm deploying a new apartment building, a new location. for whatever reason, I've got 50, 100, bunch of microtics that need to be configured, and I don't want to generate a configuration for each one individually. What the template config allows you to do is apply that template config to your baseline RSC script. You can load it on 100 routers, and then as those routers come online, they'll automatically generate the router's unique credentials in our system on the back end, apply them to your company config, and you'll be able to watch those import within a couple of minutes to your dashboard. Another thing we've added is hierarchy view. So we've been asked to do some more interesting things with parent-child relationships. So we've added the ability for you to, and we're going to show this, it's really neat, is the ability to add groupings of microtics. And so what we're going to do primarily first off with that is smarter firmware updates, so that we update children first and then work our way up the list to the parents. But that's going to allow us to do some other interesting things too. And other things that are improved, another beta feature is speed testing. So we've improved the speed testing UI, and that's looking good. As well, we've got improvements on the router health page, firmware improvements, security scanning improvements. Some customers were getting locked out of their accounts by improperly entering a password a couple times. So your dashboard admin can now reset login attempts. Two-factor was temporarily disabled, but now it's back again because we had some changes to the way that behaved, and now that's back and solid. And then finally, we've got some reporting updates so that you can do a CSV dump of your deployment and compare that against your other tools that you may have. So let's jump into the dashboard and take a look here at what our new stuff is. So really quickly, if I jump into the dashboard, by default here, here's our primary view, what we call the NOC view. You can see here, we've got a quick heads up display of what's the health and status of the network, online, offline. Are there any routers that are in CPU or RAM or disk trouble? And I can have a favorite router down here that'll show me day, week, and month bandwidth scores. And so I can just take a look and just quickly see how's the health of my deployment of microtics. If we hop into router listing, you can see here, we've got, again, online, offline. Still see at a glance, hey, what's my highest used CPU device here? Looks like it's this guy named VPN1. And I can, again, quickly get a look at what the health and status of the network is with a little more detailed view on each of the routers. So I'm going to jump into beta features here for a moment and take a look at the beta listing, which looks a lot like router listing. And this is where we stick our features that are not quite ready for prime time yet, but they are through beta testing, alpha testing. We're getting ready for release. And to you guys, that's called a beta feature. So right off the bat, we added port forwarding. So I'm going to jump in here and take a look at this red icon here with the arrow and see if there's any port forwards on here. Looks like there are a couple of port forwards. Looks like we port forwarded port 80 and 8080. And I can delete these port forwards just by clicking on the trash can. I can add a new port forward that'll bring up this UI that allows me to port forward to an IP address, or if I don't know the IP address, I can check on devices that are connected here. And this will allow me to select one or the other, and then I can just pick the port that I want to forward, and that'll do the port forward for me. So I mentioned also the default configuration, which we call our template config here. You'll notice that if we come in here, there's a couple of caveats here. You can read through those to see if there's any thing that applies to you. But basically, all I have to do for these, and like I mentioned, I get a 100 router order and I need to deploy these. I can just copy this config, put it into my template, and apply that to a bunch of routers. And then once those routers connect to the internet, they will check in with our system. and then they'll come into your dashboard on your router list. And what will happen is that it'll show up as a new router. I don't have any currently, I've renamed them all, but it'll show up as an unprovisioned router. It'll have its MAC address, its IP address, its serial number. You'll be able to see it by its model number, and you'll be able to update any settings that you need to on that router. We talked about hierarchy view. So, and I come in here, I've already added one here, but let's say, for example, I want to start managing my deployment and taking a look at how's this user interface work. So I'm at the root level here, which means I can start adding parent relationships. So let's say I happen to know that this Bro D52 is a main unit at one location. So I can add that here as a root level router, jump into him, and then I'll add Bro D52 extender to that primary location. And so now I've got a parent-child relationship here between the Bro D52 and Bro D52 extender. And what that's going to allow us to do in the immediate near-term future is say, hey, firmware updates are going to look at children first. We're going to update those guys, and then we'll move our way up and update parents later. In addition, in the future, we hope that this comes into play for more different features, but we're working on firmware first. And so the way this looks is that you can see here under RB4011, I've got 9 children here. Under Bro, I have 1 children. And so you can come in here. If I make a mistake, I can just hit the X there, and it's going to remove that from the parent-child relationship. And then I can manage that guy because now he's back in the list. And so I could move back to the root and add him to the Bro D52 deployment, and now he's a child of that location. So right now, today, this feature will not take effect, but over the next month, we'll be continuing to improve firmware management, and we'll start using this hierarchy view to do a better job with firmware. So next up, let's take a look at firmware, because that changed this month also. What we've done is added the functionality. So I'm going to jump in here on this guy, and let's do real quickly. I'm going to jump back to, this is the router that I'm looking at the moment. So I'm going to switch him to a different firmware train so that he can actually do the update. And if I schedule him now to do an update, and we're stage that update to do it in the maintenance window, we'll just pick Central Time here, and we'll hit submit here. And this may take a couple seconds if you have many routers. If you're selecting 100, it might take 100 seconds. It takes about 1 second per router to run through and schedule all those updates. But now that staged update, what it does is that it jumps into each of your routers and adds lists to the schedule. So you'll notice over here, we've got some scheduled lists. And the reason that we're doing this is that without knowing the hierarchy view, if we scheduled a bunch of routers to update simultaneously at the same maintenance window, and one of the routers that was updating was a parent of one of your routers that's also needing to update, the internet path could get broken, in which case the update would not trigger. So what staged update does is it will download the update now and then set a schedule to reboot during the maintenance window. So you'll see here at 2 a.m., we've got a schedule to update, and then 10 minutes later, it'll apply the system router board update also. So in that way, we'll have taken care of both the system packages and the system router board upgrade during the maintenance window. Now, staged is different than updating now. When you update now, it'll just go ahead and take care of all of those right real time. So if we take a look at the other beta feature update here, we've got speed tests. So I took a look at that Bro D52 extender earlier. Let's jump in that guy and run a speed test on him. So what this is going to do behind the scenes is create a VPN between our speed test head end And in a future release, we'll have the ability for you to set your own VPN speed test headends. But so this VPN will go ahead and establish and then run a speed test to that headend and give you the results. So just a quick and easy way to validate that your deployment's getting the speeds that you expect them to get. Today, this is testing to Atlanta, Georgia. Like I mentioned, in a future release, this will be able to test to whatever router you've selected. So you'll see it does download, upload, speed testing, and then it'll check latency and give you that result too. Let's see, other improvements that are recent are, we can jump in here to router health. So router health is where we can see the, again, health and status of this particular router. I can look at download, upload for day, week, and month. And so we can toggle between those and take a look at what our statuses look like. And then down here, this was having a little bit of trouble with, if you had a lot of LAN devices connected to this router, in the past, we were just displaying them all. And now this is showing with an eye here, ones that are currently connected and have connected in the last, I think, day. And so we've got a better indication of which ones are currently active on the network versus ones that may not have been seen for a little while. Still, we've got the ability here to take a look and do our stacked view. And this will show us over the last day which devices have connected. And so we can see that, hey, the Xbox One must have did an update because we had a whole lot of traffic on him at 7 o'clock last night. So let's see here. In other news, I think if I head over here to user manager and look at my user listing, I now have a reset login attempts. So for accounts that have triggered a lockout on them, so you've entered your password incorrectly 3 times, you'll be locked out, and now you have a way to reset that without having to open a ticket with us. In other news, we mentioned that 2-factor is re-enabled. Nothing new in Fleet Commander, but just quickly, this is our tool to run a bulk configuration or bulk interrogation. So this can be used for anything from updating a DNS server, adding a firewall rule, troubleshooting a path by running a trace route. Really, any arbitrary command can be executed against one or all of your routers in your deployment. Let's see, in router listing, there should be a new button here, generate CSV. So what this will do is create a report. Just go ahead and click that, and it'll download the report here. And I may have to find where it's which screen it's landing on here. There it is. So I'm going to have to jump over here. There we go. And what you'll see here is that I get a report of all my routers and details on stuff that's in our database, as well as if it's an LTE router, it'll show all of its LTE info. So now that's helpful for finding the IMEI and matching that up with your deployment, making sure that your field deployment matches what your records are. Let me see here. I think that covers most of our newest updates to the dashboard. So just for a moment, let me talk through, and if you have any questions, go ahead and type those in the chat. We'll get ready for questions here momentarily. Tags are a way to sort your deployment, and just you'll notice that I've got several tags here that allows me to search by tags here later on. Our search is OmniSearch, so you can look at anything from MAC address, serial number, IP address, nickname, system identity, or tags. Tags will be having a filtering UI coming up here soon. That's one of the things we're also working on. We did have a minor update in security. So if you head over here to security on router security, you'll notice that there's warnings here. This one has indicators of the Maris exploit. It's got a couple of identifications that we look suspicious to us. And I think that some of these items would not update. So if you fixed them, they might still report that they were broken. So it was just a user interface that was not updating. So that user interface has been patched up, as well as it'll tell you the last time it ran a scan. Backups, nothing new here, just the ability to take a look at your backups, and you can compare a backup or download a backup of today from yesterday or last week or last month, and just real quickly see what's different in the configuration between now and then. And we went through firmware. Fleet Commander Login Manager is our Radius backend. So this allows you to, for your entire MikroTik deployment, say, hey, what users can log in to Winbox? And so users that you add at the top will instantly have access to all the routers at the bottom. And if you need to revoke access, you can do that in one click instead of having to go to every router. Let's see. And then 2 months ago, we added the Wi-Fi feature. So this is still here. I think this is going to move into the production dashboard pretty soon. We just have to hand over to our front-end expert, Jake, and say, hey, where's the best place to stick this, and where should this live? But the current iteration here allows you to easily and quickly update the SSID and passphrase. And then we're going to add channel width and the band settings soon. So I think that covers our what's new webinar update here, and we can open it up for any questions.
Mark, looks like Tyler has a couple of questions in chat here. I noticed the port forwarding doesn't support protocol. Is that on the roadmap? It does TCP and UDP simultaneously.
Yeah. So we don't have any feature requests to do other than TCP UDP. So trying to make it easy for the user, we just automatically select both TCP and UDP and forward both of them, which means that it's not able to support other protocols like ICMP. If we need to support other protocols, we can sure do that. We just need a feature request and a use case, and we can wrap that up and put it in a feature request, send it over to product management, and make it happen. So far, what we've seen is that the just TCP UDP automatically updating really covers all the use cases that we've seen so far.
All right. There's another question from Tyler. No generate CSV option for me. Will that roll out to Admirals separately? I guess I can take that one. Tyler, the Admiral updates we usually do on Mondays are pushed to Wednesday this week, exactly, so we can get this stuff out to Admirals this week. So expected by tomorrow morning.
Yeah, so it'll be the staged update and just a couple of those minor UI fixes that are not quite to Admirals yet. Those are going to be pushed out, like Mario said, later today, tomorrow.
That is it for questions in chat. Mark, there's a few more questions that were kind of compiled out of the more frequently asked questions from the support emails. I guess this one you kind of covered a bit. Speed test looks great. Are we going to be able to add speed tests to our own servers? Maybe you could elaborate a little bit on, I know we chatted a little bit about requirements of that before.
Yeah. Yeah, so speed test, the user interface here for running your own speed test. Oh, that's the wrong button. The user interface for running your own speed test on these guys is pretty close to done. What we need to do is wrap a user interface around adding your own speed test headend. And so that is in the works. It's on the roadmap. I expect to see it soon. I'm not sure if it'll make it, this month or next month, but it is coming soon.
All right. And another question that I guess you also kind of touched already. What is the point of hierarchy view?
Yeah. So as we mentioned, for now, this is going to be primarily used for firmware updates, just to make sure that we are updating in a smarter order. But you could see how this could also be a check mark for Fleet Commander, right? And so you need to run a bunch of updates on your routers. It might make sense to say, hey, I want to start out at the child, the last leaf of this tree network, and then work my way up with Fleet Commander instead of just doing it in an arbitrary order of the order that they were added to the platform. So I think that it's going to come to several other features. But for now, firmware is really our focus. And I guess it's worth mentioning that there's another feature coming, hopefully next month. They're called Network Mapper. Network Mapper is going to have a user interface that kind of displays what the internet path is from your router deployment, hopefully to help network operators that have multiple paths out to the internet validate that the current active path matches what their expectations are. And so once we have that network mapper functionality, we'll take a look at, is there a way that we can integrate that with the hierarchy view and kind of build some of that parent-child relationship automatically? Because for some of our customers with very large networks and thousands of microtics, you can see that even though this user interface is easy to use, it would be a daunting task for someone to come in and click thousands of routers and create those relationships.
All right. Looks like we got a couple more questions in chat. One is from John. Is there a tool for replacing the units?
So if I read that right, we're saying I had a MikroTik die and I need to replace it with a new one. And so in that case, what you would do is go to backups. And this is one of the things that is on the feature request list to improve a little bit. You can come here and say, hey, I want to download the config. I'll open that up. And you'll see here, gotta jump back to my other window here to drag this over. But all right, so I've got my config here. One of the things that currently you have to do is come in here and if you don't want to duplicate MAC addresses, let's go ahead and delete this MAC address outright. And besides that, the rest of this should be all copy pastable. The only thing missing would be your users. So if you're using Login Manager, that's going to be fine because Login Manager will take care of ensuring that your Winbox login users can come into play. But if you're using local users on the router, you'll have to add those manually yourself. And that's because MikroTik does not allow the users to be exported in plain text.
All right. Another question from Tyler. Any plans to add some of the new UI improvements and features like speed test and LAN device Wi-Fi metrics to end user view?
Yeah. So there's actually a current there's project in place right now. Front end folks are specifically targeting the end user view and basically rewriting it from the ground up. If you've been a RemoteWinBox user for a long time, you probably have noticed that the dashboard doesn't look anything like it did a year ago. And there was significant effort here on the router listing and the router health page to do a much better job at that user interface and user experience. And so that same lens and viewpoint is now being taken on the end user view, which if I jump over here and take a look at that, end user view, no, that's not the end user view, it's the little guy. So the end user view here, if I jump into that, is something that is it's due for another look. And so in end user view, well, you can see there's some good bandwidth happening here on this guy named Home Audience 1. And we can see some device here on the network is consuming, 20 to 50 megs of traffic as we speak. And we can see here our signal strengths. So all of this is being looked at right now to have it be more in line with our, somewhere I have it here, this health page here. So we're going to see overall bandwidth and then per device bandwidth. It's going to look a lot more like this so that we can see, what devices are there and their Wi-Fi signal strengths. So absolutely, some of this data is still going to be here. We can take a look and see our SSID and our passphrase, some of the health and status of that router. But this is going to definitely get a facelift and look a lot more like the health page, and then include some more of those functionalities that are on the health page.
Sounds good. Well, for now, that is all for questions out of chat. We have a couple more from our inbox. New HAP AX2. Will RemoteWinBox work with the new router?
Yeah, so I guess that depends on which feature we're talking about. So by default, the majority of features are going to work with any MikroTik. So if MikroTik's running RouterOS, doesn't matter v6 or v7, our software is compatible with the vast majority. Because you mentioned the AX specific model, I'm guessing that you're going to use that to use the Wi-Fi 6 features or Wave 2. And I think that those particular sets of Wi-Fi specific features live in a different context for the syntax of talking to it. And so we'll need to do some updates on it to take care of Wi-Fi. So for example, if I wanted to come in and our current beta feature over here of updating the Wi-Fi SSID or passphrase, you probably have to do that manually instead of through our dashboard on that particular model. As long as we're talking about Wi-Fi, I did skip over one thing that Tyler in particular, I think, was pretty excited about. Over the last month, we updated these signal strengths down here. You'll notice that some of them are yellow and red. And in the past, a lot of 2.4 gig connected devices would show up yellow or red when they really should be green. And we've taken a look at that and patched that up. So it should be very indicative of the signal quality for both 2.4 and 5 gig. So it's always looked good for 5. Now it looks good for both 5 and 2.4.
Good. Thank you for a little catch up with bug fixes too. I guess the last question that I have on the list here is, and we kind of talked about, well, you kind of talked about it, I believe, in the last webinar, RouterOS v7 support. And I think maybe the good talking point here would be, we've went through several iterations of RouterOS v7, and there was a couple of things that, broke both service of the router and then compatibility with RemoteWinBox, such as in particular 7.3.1, I believe, had broken SSH. Could you maybe talk a little bit more about, the support of v7?
Sure. Yeah. So the particular feature of firmware updates and Fleet Commander both leverage SSH. Sorry, not firmware updates. Fleet Commander and backups both leverage the SSH under the hood to make those features work. And so both of those were busted in 7.3.1 because MikroTik had a problem on 7.3.1 where they changed the way that they were doing SSH, and effectively that broke it for our dashboard, but really for anybody who was using SSH on that particular firmware. So the fix for that is obviously update the firmware beyond that level or prior to that level so that you can take care of SSHing, and that's not unique to our platform. You can see here, I've got, this router is a 7.4, this router down here is a 7.4. I think I have one that's running 7.4 beta. or 758 or something like that. But anyway, our feature set definitely is able to handle 7. And the only caveat is as I mentioned, so far, the one that we know about is the 731 SSH functionality breaks Fleet Commander and backups. But besides that, everything else has been working. We do have a pilot program that we've been working on with some WISPs in the US to allow for a VPN service. So for example, if you're having trouble with some of the streaming services such as Netflix, YouTube, Hulu, etc., and you're getting throttled because of that traffic type, we've got a service that creates a VPN tunnel and allows you to use your MikroTik to bypass any throttling techniques or mechanisms. But that's only available for Admiral and only in the US. If you're interested in that program and being part of the pilot, let us know. Anyway, the point of that was that on V7, that particular feature does have some trouble. We're taking a look at how we can enhance that, but MikroTik continues to update V7. I think you'll see that there's a whole bunch of new versions coming out every week, and they're significantly changing the syntax. So far, there's only the one firmware issue that we know about, but certainly more changes are coming into play every day, and we could bump into a scenario where we need to make an update. You should feel confident that we've got customers all over the world, and if we see that we need to do an update for supporting a V7 feature, we'll take care of that for you. Just open a ticket with us, preferably support@remotewinbox.com. Send us an email, let us know what's broke, and we'll take a look and fix it.
All right. Looks like we got another question from John, and Tyler kind of answered it, but maybe you can elaborate a little more on it. Can we lock default config on the units so customers, if they factory reset, it'll just re-provision?
Yeah, so I see Tyler mentioned net install. Yeah, net install is really the way to take care of that. We are working with a distributor that we would hopefully coming soon will be a relationship. There'll be a button on the page here that allows you to buy routers that are pre-configured, and then they would be pre-flashed with that capability of having our template config built into those routers. So you could pre-purchase them ready to go. But if you wanted to flash them yourself, that is the way to do so, would be to have your template plus that template config put into a net install script.
All right, thank you. And thank you for the questions, John and Tyler. I think that is all for today, Mark.
Awesome. Well, hey, everyone, I appreciate your time and joining us today. Again, if you need to get in touch with me, I'm Mark at RemoteWinBox.com. If you need our support at RemoteWinBox.com. RemoteWinBox.com is our website. We've got plenty of tutorial and usage videos out on YouTube. So don't be afraid to hit us up on social media. Thanks for your time and have a great day.
Have a great day, everyone.